Good morning, everyone. This is Britt Simon. I thought I'd jump online and take some of your questions, give some answers, it can be on any topic. It doesn't have to be on any particular thing. I'm sure people are interested in entering the DV lottery for DV 2026. They may have questions about that. DV 2025 is now in process, so there may be questions about that. And of course, we may get some questions from people who still are wondering what happened in DV 2024, or perhaps about the lawsuits for 2020 and 2021. So happy to take any of those questions. So let's see who's around. So John's up early. Dikra, Dakla, Baracon Services Limited. Interesting. Sounds very, very technical. And Wuaudu. I'm terrible with names. I'm sorry if I'm mashing your names up. But good morning to all of you. So let's see who's got some questions. Let's see. Why holes are a lot in every region? Is it fake entries? No, mostly. So if you watch the video I posted yesterday, which talks about the entry process, when they number the entries initially, they number every single entry Nisar. So if there were 1 million entries in a particular region, you'd have every number would be filled from 1 to 1 million. But then between the time they do the initial ordering of and numbering of those entries and the announcements of the results, they have about a 4 or 5 month period. And during that time, they knock out cases, mostly because of the photo. The photo is the biggest, sort of knockout. But there could be other reasons too. It could be fraudulent entries, fake entries, as you put it, and that sort of thing. Even with all of that, some bad photos would make it through. So if you've taken a photo which isn't machine readable, shall we say, because instead of looking directly at the camera, you are looking off to one side, then a computer can go through and it will disqualify that case, because it knows that it can't see both of your eyes, right? Can't see both of your ears, perhaps, but it certainly can't see both of your eyes. It knows you're not looking straight on. And because somebody didn't follow the instructions, that entry will be kicked out, and that creates a hole. That's why Nissan. Okay. 2025 case number AF11K. When will I get my 2NLs? The time that everyone's going to be asking this question, right? The time that you get your 2NL depends on a couple of things, right? Actually, really 3 things. So number 1 is that your case must be current. Current meaning that your number is below the Visa Bulletin number for your region or your country for the given month. Now at 11K in Africa, your number is current. So you've got the first one, right? The next thing is your DS260 must be fully processed. Now, if you submitted your DS260 early, then it may have been processed by now, but it may not have been processed by now. All DS260s take different times to process. And so even if 2 people, for example, both submitted their DS260 on May 10th of this year, like really quickly as soon as the results were announced, those 2 cases might have a different experience. One might be processed by now, certainly should be. The other one might not even be processed by now. There are people who had early May submissions who still have not had their DS260 processed. So that's point 2. So you need to be current, and you need to be your DS260 needs to have been processed. The third thing is your embassy needs to be taking the right number of cases for them to schedule your case. So let's say there are 300 people below your AF11K at your embassy, and your embassy is only taking 50 people per month, right? Then that would mean it will take 6 months at that capacity to get to your case. Now, I'm not suggesting that's the case in your scenario, the relaxing life, because I don't know anything about your case. I don't know which embassy you're at or anything else. But I'm telling you the 3 conditions that need to be in place. And I know that you're current, but I don't know that your DS260 is completed or processed. And I don't know which embassy you're at. So, when will you get your 2NL? I don't know. Answer the other 2 questions for yourself, and you can figure that out pretty easily from there. Okay. When will come the next visa bulletin? It's always every freaking month. It's the same thing, the same answer. I don't know why people keep asking the question, but they do. So it's between the 8th and the 15th of the month, the visa bulletin will be released. We have had some exceptions to that rule, but there's not many exceptions to that rule. So in other words, we have had some visa bulletins released on like the 6th or the 7th of the month prior to the 8th, so the rule is somewhat flexible at that end. And we've also had some visa bulletins historically released after the 15th of the month. But generally speaking, the 8th or 15th is the time period when the visa bulletin will be released. That means it should be out this week, probably later on this week, this coming week, right? It'll be the 7th on Monday. So anytime I would expect from Tuesday through to Friday, I think it would be about then, okay? And for the next question is when will the 2NLs be sent for December? Well, they are always sent immediately after the visa bulletin is released. So we have the visa bulletin between the 8th and the 15th of the month, and then we start seeing 2NLs just after that for that month that the VB concerns. Okay. Okay. Is Nairobi Embassy performing well this year? Right. Good question in a sense, in that it allows me to talk about a topic that that we should understand, right? So Nairobi had an exceptionally good performance in DV 2024. Exceptionally good. The best, I would say, probably the best in the world, right? They took an enormous number of cases. They handled cases not only from their own country and also the attached countries that they're supposed to handle, but they also took all sorts of cases that people moved there, right, from other surrounding countries. They seem to have almost limitless capacity. They just kept up with the visa bulletin, or in fact, they didn't keep up with the visa bulletin to start with, but by about probably April, May, June, those months of scheduling, they were catching up quite nicely with the visa bulletin. And when that final visa bulletin came out that made Africa current, which was ridiculous for most embassies, there was no way those embassies had the capacity. Nairobi stood up and they took that challenge and they said, yep, we'll schedule them. And they scheduled cases right up to the highest possible number, over 122,000, right? So their performance in DV 2024 was exceptionally good. Will they do the same thing in DV 2025? I don't know. And this was the point I wanted to make. I don't know that they're going to operate the same way. Common sense would tell you, yeah, they're going to do pretty well. But we won't actually know how they're doing until January 1st of this year. So we'll have to be cautious until then. Similarly, there are embassies that did really badly last year, like Addis Ababa. And people have been getting excited about Addis because it seems to be taking cases, more cases than they were last year, but we don't really have the data. So it's unwise to make that assumption at the moment that Addis are going to do well, based on the very limited information we've got. There are people who believe, and I think it's true, that there are cases up to 6,500 in Africa that have been scheduled at Addis. And at this time last year, we didn't have any cases more than 1,000 number, right, that had been scheduled. So, but does that mean that they've taken all the cases up to 6,500 that they needed to take? No, it doesn't mean that at all. And so we don't really know that that's going to be their capacity, or that their capacity is going to allow them to go to the very highest numbers. So we have to be cautious until January. In January, we will see what the embassies have done so far, the first 3 months, and then we can make a better assessment. Okay, so is Nairobi going to do better this year? I don't know. We'll wait and see. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Britt Simon. I was DV24, was watching your live for almost 1 year now. Staying USA, WDC, 2 weeks. Awesome. Welcome to America. I hope everything goes well for you, Mustafa. I think America needs you. So hope it goes well anyway. All right. Hi, Simon. If a person has unknowingly uploaded manipulated photo in one of the previous DV program, Does that result in disqualification in the upcoming program, even if he uploads a valid photo in DV 2026? Unknowingly uploaded a manipulated photo. How do you unknowingly, what? Like here's your mouse and you sort of, I by mistake, I uploaded a photo that was manipulated. Like, come on. You need to take responsibility for your actions, first of all. And, you know, it's not credible to say you unknowingly did something like that. But let me deal with the real question here. Let's say you made a mistake in a previous year. And some people ask this about photos as you have, or about marital status, or country of birth or anything. So the forms and the data that you enter on the DV lottery entries are kept as a database. The government keeps that database, and they've been very transparent about that. They've said, no, we're not going to delete that data. We're going to keep it, thank you very much, because we find it good data to have, because we can connect all sorts of people to other people and so on. So you're building a database with the DV lottery entries that the US government are keeping, okay? So best not to lie, because because your lies are kept on file. However, let's say in DV 24, 25, you entered a bad photo, or you said you were single when actually you're married, or you said you were born in Iran, when actually it was Iraq, or whatever. I mean, whatever mistake you made before, based on whatever reason that was, whether it was deliberate or not deliberate or whatever. As long as you haven't got yourself banned from a previous year's entry, which is where you make the mistake and then continue the mistake and the lie by going for interviews based on that lie and not admitting that until you're caught. Once you're caught, you'll be banned forever, right? And then you just, forget it. You're never going to win the DV lottery again because you've been banned, right? But if the mistake in previous years was innocuous and you didn't commit any fraud based on that lie, including the bad photo from before, that isn't going to affect your further chances of being selected for DV 2026, right? In general, it's not going to affect that, right? You have to not only make a mistake, but you also have to try, in order to get disqualified and banned, you're building a sort of a fake world, a series of lies around that initial lie. Now, manipulating a photo, it's not a good idea, but it's not the end of the world. And let me just be clear, manipulation of a photo to remove a background is not a problem by itself. The manipulation of a photo to change the appearance of the face, that's what the problem is, okay? So if all you did was you had a blue background and you changed that for a white background, but it was done professionally, it was done well, and during that alteration, it didn't affect the person's face in any possible way, it didn't cut out the hair, it didn't do anything. As long as that's the case, as long as you didn't do anything bad, then that sort of manipulation is okay. So that's not really a problem anyway. All right? I hope I fully answered that question for you. Can I take a photo with my phone? Absolutely, you can. Phones are really good these days. So, and the cameras on those phones are really good. So yes, you can absolutely do that. I'm a DV 2025, 21K Nairobi Embassy. When to expect the interview? I don't know when, but you're not current yet. So probably, maybe December, the visa bulletin that comes out for December interviews, maybe you'll be in that, but more likely probably January or perhaps even as late as February, okay? Nairobi Embassy hasn't sent any 2NLs. Hope they will send 2 soon. I don't know that that's true. I don't think you know that's true. There are rumors, but unless you know every single selectee, we don't know that they haven't received any 2NLs yet. Hello, Simon. My case is 13K. When will I be going for interview at Frankfurt Embassy? Don't know. Don't even know your region. You haven't told me your region. And now I've got to kill an angel because you told me your number without your year and your region. So, sorry. An angel will be killed in DTube's name. Hello, British Simon. Have been following your advices and got my visa in Nairobi. Kudos. Well done, Lucas. Glad to hear it. Mohammed says, my DV 2025 case number is 6700 AF. Have a flight to India in December. Okay. My embassy is Addis. Should I proceed with the trip, or can I have my interview in December? No, that's up to you. You know, planes fly in both directions, right? So if you go to interview, if you go to India rather, and you get a notification about your interview, you could get on a plane and come back, right? It's possible. They have this weird thing. They don't just send the planes in one direction; they fly them in both directions. Right? Otherwise, they would have all the planes would be in India, right? I'm so mean. Edwin, we have not received our 2NLs yet, especially Nairobi Embassy. What is your take on that? Already talked about it. What is announced visa bulletin for December 2025? When is announced? Talked about that already, 8th to the 15th. I was selected of 2024, but the embassy didn't reach our number. Yeah, that sucks, Dr. Lowe. It really does. But there's nothing you can do about it. That is sort of luck of the draw. It's just the way it is, I'm afraid. There's nothing you can do to complain about it or sue or anything like that. Speaking of suing, by the way, quick announcement. Tomorrow morning at 2 hours earlier than this time, so right now is 10:30 a.m. Look at your watches, please. Everyone look at your watch, right? And it's 10:30 my time, right? So at 8:30 tomorrow morning, my time, so 2 hours earlier, your time, right? But tomorrow morning, on Sunday morning, I'll be doing a live Q&A interview with Jessie Bless. Jessie Bless is one of the excellent lawyers that we've been working with for several years now, that won the Gomez case for DV 2020, originally carried on with the appeals, fought the appeals, and eventually our side lost the appeal to the government through a pretty harsh decision. But nevertheless, Jessie Bless was the leader of that team that won that original case. And many cases were sort of based around that case as well. So there are other cases. Jessie Bless was the representative for AILA, which is the Association of Immigration Lawyers in this country. He was the director of litigation for that. He's now in private practice. He practices for his own company. And he's very kindly agreed to take some questions tomorrow from you, from me. So if you have questions, please post those questions on today's YouTube video or on BritSimonSays.com. And the sort of questions that he'll answer is, generally speaking, differences between consular processing, where you're processing in your own country at home, and adjustment of status, where you're processing your DV lottery win in the USA. And so all the topics around that, about adjustment of status. Some of you, well, he'll probably tell us, I think, tomorrow, but some of you may know that in the latter part of the DV lottery, as soon as that final visa bulletin was issued, I sort of made a call, if you like, and suggested that people try and adjust status if they could before the end of the year. But if they were to do that, they should probably work with the lawyer to do that. Well, Jessie took some of those cases and had excellent success. So there were people who were able to adjust status quickly. And I'm quite keen to hear about that tomorrow morning. So anyway, Jessie's going to be with us for a Q&A session. He's a great guy, and I very much appreciate his time on a Sunday morning to do that. So yeah, join me tomorrow morning in 22 hours from now. Okay. All right. Passport is required for DV entry 2026. No, it's not. The passport is not required for the entry. It's required when you win, right? I mean, you have to have, when you go for an interview, you have to have a passport typically so that they can print the visa into there. But no, you don't need it for the entry. There was in DV 2019, they implemented that rule, but that rule was squashed later and hasn't come back. Okay. Don't know what that is. My question is, if a man is married to 3 women, that's called polygamy or bigamy in this country, can they use him as husband for DV? Right. So I think what you're asking is, can each of the 3 women enter and list the man 3 times? The simple answer is no. That would be a big problem, right? So firstly, to just explain about polygamy. Polygamy may be legal in your country, but it's not legal in America. And so the rules around bigamy, which is the offense of getting married a second time while you're still married to the first wife or husband or whatever, the rules of bigamy generally say, and the effect is that the original marriage, the first marriage, is considered the legitimate marriage, and marriages after that point, bigamous marriages or polygamous in your terminology, the second, third, fourth, 17th marriage, all those other subsequent marriages, those are not genuine marriages in the eyes of American law, right? And so for American immigration law, the only spouse that should list you on her entry would be the very first spouse, the very first wife, right? But to be perfectly frank with you, if you're from a country that practices polygamy, and you know, you have all of that comfort of that law, etc., why would you come to America? Because America's not going to respect that sort of behavior. You know, so it's going to be very, very difficult. If you genuinely are married to 3 women, what are you going to do? You're going to leave 2 of the women back home, 2 of the spouses, 2 of the families? How would you do that, right? You know, so if you're thinking you can bring the whole family, 3 wives and 17 kids and everything else, it won't work that way, right? That's not going to happen. So I would question why you would even want to be a part of the DV lottery, frankly. But the simple answer is no, the 3 wives can't list the husband so that the husband has 3 derivative entries. That's not how it works. And if you did that, by the way, all of those entries would be disqualified instantly. So, you know, don't do that. Sharon, I forgot confirmation code for DV 2025. Will it affect anything? No, it doesn't matter. You can look it up. If you go to the ESC page and click the link on there that says forgot confirmation number, you can retrieve your confirmation number from the next page. Right. Very simple to do. What about 2024 2NL? There are no more 2NLs for 2024 because 2024 is finished, 100% finished. All the visas were used up. Maybe they had about 300 left, but they can't issue them after the 30th of September. So DV 2024 is over. There are no more 2NLs for DV 2024. Okay. Is it possible to win DV and not be scheduled for interview or get my 2NL? 100% is possible. Yes, that's so in DV 2025, for example, there are over 131,000 people selected, and there's only 55,000. Actually, there's only 52,000 visas, less than 52 visas left. There's, I think it's or available. I think the number is, I can't remember the number exactly, but it's like 51,500 or something. So 130,000 plus people selected, 50,000 visas. How do you think that's going to work out? Right? Clearly, a lot of the people selected are not going to get an interview. In fact, what will happen is the magic number, I've talked about this before, the magic number of the people that will be scheduled for interview is about 70,000. It's going to be a bit less in DV 2025 because there are less visas available. But basically, you know, there are 131,000 selected at least. There's a bit more than that actually. But of those, when they schedule about 68,000 of those, maybe around about that number, that will be enough people, and then they'll stop scheduling people after that point. Okay, so yeah, people will miss out on an interview. People will either not get the 2NL, or in some circumstances they actually cancel the interviews later in the year. They did that in DV 2023. So yeah, that happens. Okay, Mohar says, I mistakenly chose primary in the education rather than high school diploma. Then I corrected in the DS260. So is that okay, or should it be a problem at the interview session? Not a problem at all. I've said a million times. Then when you pick that education level in the DS2 well, it's chosen in the DS260 and also in the DV entry, which is the DS5501. That's the DV entry form. That question itself is not a knockout question. It's not an important question. It's there for statistical analysis only. So what really matters is what education you actually have and that you can show and prove. Okay, so make it correct in the DS260, but if the DV entry was not correct, it doesn't make any difference whatsoever. Ratty Marley, Bob's son, I guess. Another one. I am so grateful for the help throughout the 2024 fiscal year program. I'm now in Ferry Avenue, New Jersey, USA. Ferry Avenue, that's very specific, but thank you for that. You're in New Jersey, that's awesome. I'm grateful for your assistance. You were very instrumental throughout. That's awesome. Thank you, Ratty. And I'm sure you're going to do well in America. I'm a winner of 2025 from Asia, Bhutan. My case number is 21K. Is there any chance for a 2NL? It's too early for me to be specific about how many people are selected under your case number to see whether you're going to get a chance or not. It's too early. We need to have a bit more data for Asia, Africa, and Europe. I have done a prediction for Oceania. I'm not going to do a prediction, I don't think, for the other regions until January. Oceania is pretty easy. I can already deduce what number we'll get current to. And I need to create a video on that particular one, Oceania. But for the rest of the regions, such as Asia, Africa, Europe, and so on, we'll need to wait until January when we have the actual data. Okay. Should the photo have a white background at all costs? Well, I mean, there's shades of white, right? You can be against a very light beige background, that can be okay. A very, very light color, such as a blue, very light color. A light gray, white, anything that looks almost white. Doesn't have to be exactly white, it can be off-white, right? And if you can't achieve that, then, digitally have the photo altered to remove the background and have just a plain white background, okay? On the Zarthisia site, you can check if your CN is a whole. How is that verified? Okay, you can't do that for DV 2025 now. Philip, it's kind of a strange question for you to ask because you know this. But anyway, how is it a whole? So let's say we're looking at DV 2024. There's a bit of a weird thing that's happened, Philip. And I'll tell you about that in a minute. But basically, the system that he's connecting to is based on all the data that he has obtained, scraped for want of a better word, from the SEAC system. So it's the live, it's the real live data pulled into his data source, so that he can then check that. And if the case is missing, then he can identify that case as a whole because it was missing from the original extract, right? And in theory, that should never change. However, if you go look at did Zarthisius update it yesterday, actually? If you go look at the final data, yes. So Zarthisius did his normal Friday scrape. No, actually, he hasn't updated. Let me just see if I can get that. I don't need to get it now, but I can tell you that the number of people scheduled for interview has dramatically gone down, and cases have disappeared into thin air. And it's hundreds, possibly even a couple of thousand cases have been marked as wholes. Holes have been created during the process. What do I mean by that? It's like a case was sitting at ready, and ready means that the embassy received that case from KCC, and perhaps that person never turned up for interview, right? Well, some of the embassies have actually been deleting those cases from their system, and they've gone back to in transit. In some cases, which is really weird, they've gone back to in transit. So the in transit number has increased, and also the number of holes has increased. That's happened in the last few days, and I've got the numbers for you if you wanted to see that, Philip. I'll put it in the channel, the Telegram channel. Okay, but it is a weird thing. Why they're doing that is beyond me. I don't know why they've chosen to create those extra holes like that. It's really weird. Okay, let me go back to the questions. Where are we? Yeah. Okay, so, but anyway, it's verified based on the SEAC data. That's basically the short answer, Philip, but I know that it's what we call a friendly question, I think. Sisay, hello, sir. Please, what surname should I use on the DV lottery form if I'm married? And also, if I'm in college at the moment, what should I choose on the DV lottery form? Okay, first question about if you're married. If you're married and during that marriage you changed your name to your husband's name, let's say, which is common in some countries, in a lot of countries, right? Then the marriage was actually a legal name change process, and you've got paperwork that now shows your married name. So you have your married name and your maiden name, which is the name that you had from birth, and your new legal name is the married name. So you would apply with the married name because that's your new legal name. That is your legal name now. Now, I understand what happens in life is some people change their legal name through marriage, but they haven't updated their passport yet because maybe it only had a year to go and they think they'll sort it out next time or whatever. And so it's possible that your paperwork won't entirely match your legal name, but your birth certificate will, right? And your original marriage documentation will. And so you can create the history, you can create the documents that show why you're entering with that name and that you used to be called a different name under your maiden name. So in the DS260, when you apply, you use your, for the DV entry, you should use your married name, ideally. For the DS260, you would put your married name in. And there's another section of the DS260 which is for other names that you have gone by, and that's where you would put the maiden name. Okay. Can I use my photo I take this month to apply for the DV lottery? Yes, absolutely. I'm a winner of DV25. My case number is 13K Frankfurt. MC, when will I be going for interview? Probably early next year. But I'm not going to get specific on guessing dates. Okay. Greetings from St. Paul, Minnesota. I was a DV24 winner and have been constantly watching your clips. Awesome. Welcome, Ibrahim. Ehud says, I got my DV24 visa last month, flying in 2 days. Exciting. To visit NYC for 2 weeks and activate the visa. Thanks for everything. You're very welcome. Enjoy New York City. It's a buzzing place. I don't know if you plan to try and live there, but it's a nice city. Good luck with that trip. Wanted to apply for my dad and my mum, Greencard this October. Okay, go ahead. I'm DV25 winner, Nairobi Embassy, case number 61,000. When do you estimate the interview might happen? That's going to be well into next year, right? So probably, I don't know, June, July, something around about that, roughly. Greetings from St. Paul again. DV25 winner, case number is AF8K Nairobi. When should I expect my 2NL? Fairly soon. I talked about that earlier, right? I explained the conditions for that. So wind back in the video if you didn't hear that. Good morning from New York. Good morning, Ahmed. Hi, Simon. Does someone with a good photo that meets the requirements has better chances to be selected? Yeah, well, so the way it works, the jumbling of the numbers is random. It's not like they pick the cases based on a good photo. So it doesn't help you get selected because the number is randomized. The draw system is random. At that point, they're not looking at the photos. But once they've numbered the cases, you might be case number, I don't know, let's just say you're EU 10, you're number 10 in EU, or you're Africa 10, you're number 10 in Africa, you're the 10th person in line. But if your photo is crap, if your photo doesn't meet the requirements, they will disqualify your case during the draw process after the draw has happened, and in that screening process, and so you'll then never know you were a winner. So having a good photo doesn't help you get picked, but it makes sure that you are not going to get disqualified for that photo during the draw process. So in a sense, you could say that it will help you with the draw process, right? If you want to put it that way. Sam. Hi, Simon. Hope it all is well. How is a photo affects the spouse when she is considered a derivative during the DV lottery application ongoing? The rules for the photos apply to the spouse and the kids as well. So they also have to have good photos, looking straight at the camera, head and shoulders, the right proportions, 600 pixels by 600 pixels, white background, all of that. All of those requirements apply to the spouse and the kids, right? The only real latitude that is given is for children, very young children, babies, where the government accepts that it's hard to take a photo of a baby, and they want the baby's eyes to be open, but they're not going to be worried if the baby's head is tilted to one side because they're lying on a blanket and they're all scrunched up or something. They will be more forgiving about a photo for a baby, but for children that are old enough to take instructions to sit there and not smile and look at the camera, for everyone else, they should be meeting the requirements of the photo. Okay. NYC, good. Yeah, we talked about that one. Any idea how many green cards are given to the country of Iraq? Yeah. Let's see. Fiscal year. Now, I'm going to do it for DV 2024, and I'm just going to check this. Let me show you what I'm doing here. I'll show you the data I'm looking at. Present, share screen. Okay, on Zarthisius's site, there's a place where it says annual DV issuances, monthly DV issuances, and this is a representation or an extract of what the government say is the data. Because the thing is that with a country like Iraq, you don't know where Iraqis are interviewing, right? They could be spread all over, all over the world, really. So what we do here is we look at the annual issuances, we look for the country, and we can see how many Iraqis have got their visas year to date, right? And this data is the official data up to August. So it's not the whole year yet, but pretty much the year is done, right? So, and there were 44 issued in the month of August to Iraqi citizens, and for the year to date, 179. Right? That's the numbers. So there you go. Go and have a look. Zarthisius, so it's dvcharts.zarthisius.xyz, and you can go to the annual issuances, or you can look at the monthly. You can look at issuances by post and so on. You can do all sorts of things here. He's an amazing guy. Why wouldn't you use that data? Okay. Mohammed, hi Simon. Is the affidavit of support I-134 mandatory for DV applicants, or is it mainly for family-based visas? If you read the instructions for the DV lottery, because I have this argument every time, all the time, right? So let's just DV lottery instructions, because people always say to me, "Oh, I've never heard that you have to have an affidavit of support. I've never heard that listed in the requirements or the documents for the interview." Blah blah blah. There's all these things. There's always people who don't believe that this is a requirement, right? So let me just show you program instructions for DV 2026. And I haven't checked this, but I'm sure it's there because it's there every year. Every single year, this is there. So you scroll down and you read all the instructions. Now you've all read these instructions, right? And then you can also go to the FAQ, the FAQ entries. And there's a bunch of really good questions and answers there. And it says miscellaneous program information. If I receive my visa through the DV program, will the US government pay for my airfare to the USA, help me find housing and employment, and or provide healthcare or any subsidies until I'm fully settled? The answer, no, right? And then it says, if you are submitted a diversity visa application, you should familiarize yourself with the Department of State's public guidance on how the likelihood of becoming a public charge is assessed, and what evidence can be provided to demonstrate that you are not likely to become a public charge. What's that talking about? This FAQ used to specifically say an I-134, but now they've softened the language a little bit because the requirement is that you are not going to become a public charge. You're not going to become a burden on the US government for any of those things, for for housing, for lodging, for food, any of those expenses. That is your problem, right? And there's a couple of ways you can satisfy that requirement. And that requirement about public charge, by the way, is the same for any immigration case. It doesn't matter what immigration case, every one of them has to satisfy this particular requirement, that you won't become a public charge. How is that done in DV lottery? Well, you can show your own savings of at least $10,000 per person, I would say, although that's somewhat subjective. Some CEOs may see that differently. You can show a real, and I emphasize the word real, a real job offer of a real job from a real American company who really intends to wait for you to come to America. But that's very unlikely to be real, because why would an American organization just keep a job open for 6 months or a year while you go through your DV process, right? It's not very realistic. But that's another way you can meet the public charge. And the other way is to present an affidavit of support, which is what an I-134 is. And and that's a promise, if you like. It's a form that an American citizen or resident fills in, and they are promising to provide assistance to you, should you come to America. That form, the I-134, is a little bit different to the form used for family-based immigration, they use a form called the I-864. The I-864 creates a relationship and a contract between the American government and the supporter, the sponsor, whereas the I-134 doesn't create the same sort of contract. The I-134 is not legally enforceable, according to the US government. That's what they say. Right? I'm not making this stuff up. This is what the American government says. The American government, in their instructions, say things like, because the I-134 is not legally enforceable, right? So it's a promise from an American citizen or resident to look after you, but it's not legally enforceable on them. It will be required by some CEOs who are looking at the case, and they look at the person in front of them and they say, okay, am I worried that this person is going to become a public charge? And if I am, I'm going to ask them some questions. What sort of work do they do? Have they got any of their own savings? The sort of work they do, by the way, will influence how quickly they will get a job in America, right? Are they skilled? Are they not skilled? Are they smart? Are they, can they speak English? Okay. All of those things are factors into whether the CEO believes that person is going to be become a public charge or not, right? And the CEO is entitled to investigate the totality of circumstances. That means they can look at your education, your skills, your work experience, and take those factors into account to make an assumption how well you will do in America. If they're not happy with those things, they could ask for some financial documents from you, and they'll say, okay, how much money have you got in order to look after yourself in America? And maybe you can satisfy them with that. If not, they could ask for an I-134. Okay. Now, some CEOs routinely ask for this, constantly ask for this. Other CEOs rarely ask for this. It depends partly on where the people are coming from. So in Sri Lanka, for example, it's part of the embassy instructions. Bring a I-134. Just do it, because we're going to ask every case for that. In Australia, it's very rarely asked for, because Aussies have enough money, they're very mobile, they're well educated in general, they're English speaking, they're not going to have problems in moving to America and become a public charge. And so the Sydney embassy in particular doesn't bother asking for finances very much. Now, so there's differences in how embassies work that, and there's differences in one case to another case. You might sit in front of the CEO and you seem very smart and you're nicely dressed and you're a programmer, and you might be fine. Then I turn up in my dirty old t-shirt and I've never had a decent job in my life. I've just stumbled along in life, and luckily my parents have supported me. And so I might be asked for an I-134, whereas you wouldn't have been asked for an I-134, right? It's a subjective decision sometimes that the CEO is entitled to make. Okay. And ultimately, if they feel that you're not able to support yourself, they can reject a case based on the public charge grounds. And they have done plenty of times. So there you go. Hope that's clear. Hope that's clear for you. Okay, is the confirmation number the same as the case number? No, absolutely not. You've got a confirmation number, which is what everybody gets when they enter the lottery. And then later in May, you use that confirmation number to check whether you're selected or not. If you are selected, you then get a case number. Okay, so that's a different number, an entirely different number. Hi, Simon. Right now I'm single, but I'll marry in summer. What should I need to write on the application form? Well, you can't include a spouse until you've married that spouse. Okay, and if I were you, I would be moving that wedding to much earlier, right? Because you're not going to get married until summer of next year. And if you're already a DV 2025 selectee, you haven't told me your case number or whether you're a selectee or not, and you haven't told me which application form you're talking about, so it's difficult to answer this question. But what I would say is if you're a DV 25 selectee and you filled in your DS260, you have to fill that in as single because you're not married now. But it would be very stupid indeed to wait until next summer, let's say July, and not include your spouse in the process. Why wouldn't you marry like now and include your spouse? It's kind of like obvious, really. So you should do that. Don't wait all those months and then make a much more complicated process. Okay. Answered that one. My son will be turning 21 on 15th of November 24. Can I still add him in my application? So again, which application, right? Please be specific. Do you mean the DV entry because you're entering the lottery now? If you mean the DV entry, if you are entering the lottery now, because that entry period ends on November 5th, your son will still be 20 before the end of the entry period. And so you have to include your under 21-year-old son or child on the entry form. You have to. However, he will then age out and he won't be able to get a visa with you. So you have to comply with the rules, which means you have to include him, but he won't be able to benefit because he will have turned 21 and aged out of the CSPA well before the lottery could be processed, even if you were selected. Okay. Hello, Mr. Simon. I have a friend who has been applying as married for previous years without being selected. Now for this lottery, he would like to apply as single. So it is asking, does KCC keep records? I answered this earlier, Waguti. But the question is he single or is he married? If he's married and he puts single in there because he thinks that he's heard someone has told him that that's going to increase his chances, then please tell him from me he's an idiot. Please explain that to him. He's an idiot because yes, they've got all of that proof, but regardless of whether they got proof or not, it would be a stupid thing to do that only an idiot would do, to put that he's single when he's actually married, because if he's then selected, and there's no difference in the chance of selection between single and married, no difference whatsoever. But if he is selected, he's screwed because he's lied on the form. So if he lied before and he wasn't married then, but he said he was married, well, now he should tell the truth and say he's single. But if he's actually married and he puts single after asking me this question, then he is officially, undoubtedly an idiot. Okay, and I'm hoping you'll explain that to him, Waguti. Thank goodness your friend asked you to ask. That's very good. Hi, Simon. If a person has uploaded manipulated photos, we talked about that. Hi, Simon. 2025 winner, Nairobi, 56K. When will the interview be scheduled? Sometime, probably spring, summer of next year. Probably summer. Hi, Simon. I have a UK diploma in health and social care, no high school certificate, and 6 years experience. Can I use this to enter the DV lottery? You can enter the lottery. Anyone can enter the lottery, whether you are qualified or not. You can enter the lottery. But if selected, you will need to meet the requirements of either the education level or the work experience level. if your education, if you didn't do, you're in the UK, right? If you didn't do A levels and complete successfully A levels, then you're not going to meet the education requirement, and so then you would turn to your work experience, and your work experience may meet the requirements. I don't know without some more details, but there is a blog article I've got. If you Google the words Britt Simon work experience, it will explain how you validate whether your work experience is good enough to pass that requirement on work experience or not. Okay, so you can do that. But in the meantime, Kadai, you can just enter the lottery and see if you're selected. The chance of selection is 1 in every 100 years. So enter, see if you win. If you win, then maybe put some real thought into whether you can pass the interview or not. Okay. I get an error when I click the continue button. Does leaving the application and continuing later affect my entry? If we're talking about the DV entry, do it all in one go. It should only be in one go. Semel, how are you doing? Great to know you for so long. Yes, it's been some time, right? Thanks for the years you help everyone. Hope to meet you in person. Semel, you have to let me know sometime whether you've actually been selected again. I think you were selected originally in one of the earlier years, right? But didn't make it. So have you been selected again? Let me know. Give me an update. I'm a little confused, of your current status. Like to hear about it. But anyway, thanks for saying hi. Those who are winners, how have you done it? DTube and Jonathan. So yeah, you just enter, right? And that's the best way to be picked is to enter. If you don't enter, you don't get picked. I was wondering what happens to dual citizenship citizens. For example, Greece and Chile are both eligible countries for DV 2026. I chose Chile for better chances since Greece EU has so many entries. Oh, where were you born is the only freaking question you should be thinking about, right? It has nothing to do with your citizenship and nationality. It's to do with where you were born. And even though you've got 2 citizenships, you were only born one time. So I hope if you chose Chile, I hope it's because you were born in Chile. Because you can only enter according to your place of birth, right? It's not to do with your citizenships. And I hope you haven't made a mistake. Well, hope you haven't. If you've made a mistake, by the way, remember, go to that. Chile being in South America is a different region from EU. If you were born in Greece, but you chose Chile and you're selected, you are 100% certain going to be disqualified. So I hope you haven't done that because that is an absolute certainty. There's no way to fix that problem. Okay, answered that one already. Does the visa bulletin have an effect on those scheduled for the visa interview already? Not really, no. They're scheduled. I don't know what you mean by that. Hi, Britt. 2025 AF 2000-ish, Kigali. On 18th of August, KCC replied to me that I'm ready to be scheduled. Can I follow up at this time? Another question is, how bad would it be as KGL Embassy extended remote work? Yeah, you can follow up if you want, but I would just wait if I were you. You are aware that Kigali has some issues, some problems with the way they're working. And how bad it will be, I don't know. You would know better than I do what the health crisis is like in that country at the moment. So, you would know. Okay. I'm reading some of the questions while watching the live, and it looks like people don't take time to read the DV instructions. Oh yeah, that is a true statement. They don't. Fernando says, I need to catch up with your latest vids, but since you're live now, say that I'm selected for the current DV visa, when I would be notified in 2025. I'm from Argentina. Bienvenido to I've got family in Buenos Aires, so bienvenido to you. Okay, so when would you find out? So basically, for people entering DV 2026, which is the entry period open now, the entry period will run from October 2nd to November 5th. The results will be released in early May. I think it's May 5th, but I'm not quite quite sure of the exact date, but it's early May of next year. That's when you would find out whether you're a selectee or not. And then all of the interviews are scheduled to take place between October and September of 26. So it's September the 30th of 2026 is the final day. And all of the interviews are scheduled in that 1 year period. So you enter now in October or early November of 24. You're selected in May 25, hopefully, and you interview between the 1st of October and September 30th, basically based on the case number you get. The higher numbers go later, the lower numbers go earlier, that sort of thing. That's how it works, Fernando. Good luck. Buena suerte. Hi, Simon. AF36K, is that a good case for Freetown? Probably. Yes, probably is. It's probably okay. Hi, Simon. I wanted to apply for a green card for my parents. I have 2 siblings, including me, and we're all above 21 years of age, and one is married. I wanted to know we can be in the DV application under them. Okay, so you're all above 21. That's the end of the conversation. You can't be, so your parents can't do an entry listing you as derivatives if you're over the age of 21, or if you're even under the age of 21 but married. So they can't do that. You can do your own entry. Each one of those siblings can do your own entry, but you can't include your parents on your entry, and you can't include your siblings. So, and it takes a long time to bring siblings and parents to the country. So if you are a very tight, close-knit family, and you have the perspective that either you all go or none of you go, then frankly, none of you will go, because you can't all go. You can't all go through the DV lottery program. It's not going to work, okay? Hi, Simon. In my DS260, I translated the addresses that I've lived since using Google Translate from French to English and putting them into the DS260. Would it pose an issue? No, not really. That's fine. Thanks for always helping, says Nikem. AF 50,765. Is it possible to get to the number? Yeah, that's not a bad number. The Africa highest case numbers are probably a little bit over 100,000, probably like 105,000. We'll know exactly in January, but it's about that range. So you're roughly halfway through and you're fine. I'm selected for DV25 EU. I noticed that on my entry photo, when you zoom in, you notice that my background has been edited in white as the single color goes into the neck slightly. Should I be worried? That's the sort of edit that that is a problem, right? That could have been a problem. Now, if it's only noticeable because you zoom right into the photo, you're probably going to be okay. But it depends how noticeable it is. But you're describing zooming in, so it probably won't be an issue. Okay. Okay, let's take another couple of questions, and then we'll call it a day. Does the qualified entries include entries with bad photos and double entries? When they say qualified entries, I don't think they mean qualified in that way. I think it's every entry, because when they're giving the numbers, they'll say like 20 million qualified entries. I don't believe those numbers are after the extraction of fraud and all that sort of thing. So I think they're included, but they don't actually define that anywhere that I've ever found of what a qualified entry means. But that's my assumption. Okay. Okay. This is a good question to answer. Ruth says, I want to apply. I'm on separation, but I don't have legal document for it. How do I do it? I'm glad you've asked rather than just entering in the DV lottery, because some people just enter and they don't stop to ask and they ruin their case. And then you say you're legally married. Right. So you got married, you're now separated, but as far as the DV lottery is concerned, you're still married. Okay. You are only legally separated if you have legal documents to prove that you're legally separated. That is a very particular, very unusual process. And it's unlikely to be the case, right? So you're just separated, you have no legal documents. That means you're married. that means that you have to have a photo of your spouse in the passport style photo, and that might be difficult to get. Okay, and in that case, you can't enter the lottery. So, but you can't lie, right? So don't lie. Don't say you're single or unmarried. Don't say you're separated, because those things are not true. So if your spouse will cooperate and take a photo, then you can enter. If he doesn't cooperate, don't enter. Okay. Okay. Let's see if I can scan down. I thought this was going to be an interesting question, but it ended badly. Hi, I did not indicate the number of children in the Greencard lottery during registration. Shock. Will this be a problem in the future? And I'm thinking, yes, that'll be a problem. If I win a green card because I am unmarried and I don't have a child. So then you're saying, is it a problem that I said I had no children when I have no children? No, that's not a problem. I thought you were going to say that you had, a wife and 17 kids. And in that case, yeah, that would have been a problem. I thought it was going to be a bit more interesting. But since you didn't ever get married and you haven't had a child, you were right to say you hadn't had a child. Okay. Okay, this will be the last question, because I know that some people are upset with the way I'm describing this. So let me just say it again. I'll answer this question again. Is changing the photo background to white without interfering face and overall natural appearance is okay? Do you know people who have won doing that? Yes, I know people who have won doing that. I know that selection is possible and right for well-edited photo background manipulation. People get confused about this because they read the instructions, and the instructions say don't manipulate the photos, don't edit the photos. But what they're talking about is editing the features of the face or the person, right? If the person has a red t-shirt on and you go and change that red t-shirt to being a blue t-shirt, that's idiotic. Don't do that, right? But if the person has, let's say you take a photo and you realize that one of the eyes is like closed, right? The photo is taken like that. Why would you do that? I don't know. But you think it's a clever idea to go get the eye from another photo because you like this photo, but you want to get your eye from another photo and put it in there using Photoshop. That would get you disqualified. You have edited the photo, and it's probably, unless you're a master of Photoshop, it's probably going to be noticeable. And so that's the sort of edit you mustn't do. You mustn't edit the features of the face, the height of the face. You don't like your chin, tough luck. That's how it looks, right? But changing the background from a blue color to a white color, that's not a problem as long as you haven't altered the face, okay? So, and do I know people who've done that? Yes, for many years, people have been doing that. And for many years, this same advice has been working for people. So don't worry about that, okay? Okay, we're about an hour. Let me just finish up by reminding again, tomorrow morning at 8:30 in the morning, my time. Bearing in mind, it is now 11:18 a.m. in the morning, right? So we're talking about 21 hours from now. I'm doing a session with Jesse Bless, live Q&A with Jesse Bless. So please join me if you want to ask a real immigration lawyer, a very good immigration lawyer. I'm not an immigration lawyer, right? I don't offer any one-to-one consulting. I don't answer private messages. I don't take any fees for anything I do. I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not pretending to be a lawyer. But I'm speaking to a real live proper lawyer tomorrow morning as a live session, and we'll take some questions. And so if you'd like to speak to Jesse Bless, who's an amazing, nice guy and an excellent lawyer, come and join us tomorrow morning to hear mostly about adjustment of status and that method of processing your case. But I'm sure he'd be happy to answer questions on other topics as well. Okay, so join us tomorrow morning, 8:30 a.m. in California. Work out whatever time that is in your time zone, and join us tomorrow morning at 8:30. All right, everybody, have a great day. Please subscribe to the channel, give me a thumbs up, all the usual stuff, right, for the algorithm. Thank you. Bye-bye.